Hello everyone, welcome back to Unraveling Politics, a weekly political analysis show. If you're new, I cover some of the news in the week that was in politics, and if I have time, I look ahead to the future. As always, if you like it, please give the show a like, and if you're new, subscribe as well. I hope you enjoy it. So, I'm going to do something a little different and begin with some senators and Congress people who are likely to be kicked out of office. This is always a fun part of every year. So I'm going to begin with Dan Crenshaw, who has already lost his seat, so there's no news there. And then next we have Tony Gonzalez. He was headed to a runoff and he withdrew after political pressure because of his various scandals. So they were both kicked out. No news there. But who's definitely going to be losing their seats? So I can pretty much guarantee that Senator Bill Cassidy in Louisiana will be losing his seat next weekend on May 16th in his primary. As of right now, both challengers, Representative Julia Letlow and former Representative John Fleming, are leading Bill Cassidy in the primary polls, and Trump has endorsed Representative Letlow. And if you remember, Bill Cassidy voted to convict Trump in his second impeachment, and he was censored by the Louisiana Republican Party. He also voted for a lot of Joe Biden's legislative agenda, including $1.2 trillion of infrastructure spending. He drew a lot of attention on himself last year after confirming RFK to be the health secretary, so he's going to be gone. Good riddance, in my opinion. The last time a senator that has not been renominated was in 2012, and that was Richard Lugar. So this would be the first time in 14 years, and it doesn't happen very often. And then we have another senator that I would put at an 80% chance of losing his primary, and that's Senator John Cornyn in Texas. And I've talked a lot about this before. President Trump has yet to make an endorsement. An endorsement is probably coming soon if there ever will be one. He was supposed to make one a couple of months ago, but here we are. Cornyn has been trying to move to the right in recent months, such as eliminating the filibuster, and ultimately he has a somewhat more moderate record than he would admit. I would still consider him firmly on the right of the party, but he did vote for some of Joe Biden's judicial nominees, his cabinet appointments, and he even voted for the bipartisan Safer Communities Act of 2022, which has some gun restrictions, and obviously in Texas, limiting guns in any way is highly controversial. Some of this has also drawn the ire of MAGA. Along with that, he is an establishment, and he has been in the Senate since before I was even born. He does have more money than his opponent, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, but he remains behind. A Texas public opinion research poll had Paxton about 8 points behind. I've seen where it's 10 or 12 points behind in terms of Cornyn behind Paxton. So I believe he will lose his seat, and indeed the betting markets have reached a similar conclusion. Next, we have Representative Al Green. I have this at a 60% chance of him losing his seat to another Democrat. He was forced into a runoff against fellow Representative Christian Menefee, and Al Green is 78 years old. He has been in Congress since the Bush administration, the second Bush administration, and he has been a frequent disruptor of the president's addresses to Congress, so I will be happy he is gone. His opponent is a millennial Christian Menefee, aged 37. He was just elected a few months ago in a special election, so he has been in Congress for only a couple of months. Menefee narrowly leads Al Green in the primary, but this could be a close one. So those are some people to watch in the next few weeks. I also want to turn your attention to Representative Chuck Edwards in North Carolina, a Republican facing sexual harassment charges, and this would be the fourth lawmaker, I believe, in the last few months to be facing ethics investigations. We had Corey Mills, who is still in Congress, Representative Eric Swalwell, and Tony Gonzalez as well. So this time it was an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate and sexually harassing staff, and that is a no-go on Capitol Hill. There have already been Republicans calling on him to resign, and I think what is sad is that this is supposed to be a serious workplace where they do the work of the American people, or at least so we believe, and we've known that for a very long time that is not the case, and we've had some very unserious people in office for a very long time. So what happens with Chuck Edwards? He has already passed his primary, so Republicans are going to have to stick with him unless he resigns. The House Ethics Committee is working on their investigation. This was first reported by Axios. Edwards dismisses the claim that, and I said he is up for re-election. This is a target seat for Democrats, and I would expect that the investigation will probably run beyond the midterm elections. So if he is re-elected, then Republicans will have to deal with that once they're in the minority. If he loses his seat, that will be the end of the political process anyway. Criminal charges might happen if there was anything that wasn't consensual. As far as I know, he's not being accused of anything that's non-consensual. I guess sexual harassment would be non-consensual, but if that is substantial, there's substantial evidence, then he might face criminal charges. So we'll have to see, will the House of Representatives kick him out, or will the country kick him out? We'll have to wait and see. Worst of all is Representative Nancy Mace. She's also really bad, but she's not going to be losing her seat because she's retiring to run for governor. She revealed that the House of Representatives have made $300,000 in the last few decades in payments, and this would be prior to 2018 when the Me Too movement changed this. Apparently, we as taxpayers used to pay for these settlements to victims made by lawmakers. So this was $300,000 over the course of roughly 25 years. And thankfully, that's not the case anymore, but that's how it was for a very long time. And before we move on, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Virginia's new congressional map, which was approved last month, and that was struck down by the Virginia Supreme Court. This does increase Republicans' chances of retaining control of the House of Representatives this year, but in my humble opinion, the chances remain quite low. Kalashi puts it at 25% as of this recording, and Polymarket at 22%. And I think those chances are still way too high. I would put it at like a 10% chance. And remember, Democrats need to gain just 3 seats to take control of the chamber, and there's quite a few I can think of off the top of my head that they could pull out. Like there's a couple in Pennsylvania, there's a couple in California, there's Chuck Edwards' seat in North Carolina, that's another one, and that's just what I can think of right now. So moving on, that's kind of the end of our first segment. I have 2 pieces of economic news for you, both of which are positive depending on who you are. First is Trump's 10 to 15% global tariff that has been struck down by the Court of International Trade. This was implemented when the Supreme Court struck down the tariffs back in February, a couple of months ago. And this doesn't affect many of the tariffs, but it is the second consecutive defeat the administration has been handed regarding this issue, and I suspect it will not be the last. The president will find other laws, I am sure, but this is a huge win for proponents of free trade, of which I am not. But regardless, these tariffs were likely to affect businesses. In other news, the U.S. economy shows signs of growth despite the war in Iran and persistently high inflation. Unemployment is at 4.3%, and the American economy added 115,000 jobs in the month of April. And at the end of last year, job growth looked negative, so it looked like we were heading in recession, but maybe not. We'll have to wait and see. The administration claimed every leading indicator is pointing in the right directions, and Americans can rest assured that the best is yet to come, according to Kush Dasani, a White House spokesperson. However, this is not the case. Inflation remains above 3% and $4.50 gas nationally. And yes, growth remains high. We had 2% growth in the last quarter, or in the first quarter of this year. But if you can think about this in 2 ways. And I'm not sure what to believe anymore. The first method you can believe is that high energy prices and inflation are a harbinger of what is to come, and that things will go downhill from here. Then there's the other opinion that the economy is resilient, things are getting better more broadly, but that's weighed down by these other factors. I tend to lean more toward the second rather than the first. Or perhaps it's a little bit of both, where things are going all right broadly, but for too long it will cause problems, and I'm going to leave that up to you. One thing is for certain, the Federal Reserve will not be cutting rates anytime soon. Even if the next Fed chair tries to do it, things are going fine right now, at least in terms of like overall the best it can be. So there's no need to cut rates anytime soon. And then lastly, I want to take an overseas trip to the United Kingdom, where there were some local elections last week that have the chance to oust British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. So Starmer is one of the most unpopular prime ministers in British history, and his premiership has really been death by 1,000 cuts. But it looks like he will be deposed, and there are impacts here for President Trump here in the States. And despite what Trump has said and what Starmer might have said, they have had quite a warm relationship the last year and a half. It's soured more recently, but it's definitely better than other European leaders like Pedro Sanchez in Spain as well. And that has no doubt made Starmer more unpopular in the UK. So whoever the next UK leader is going to get political benefits at home by opposing Trump. So keep that in mind. So who could replace Keir Starmer? Well, there are three people I would keep out for: Angela Rayner, Andy Burnham, and Wes Streeting. And I'm not going to go into depth about each candidate, but I will go over a little bit and what I expect their kind of leadership to be. So out of this list, Andy Burnham is the most likely to be prime minister, with one caveat. He is currently ineligible. So you might think, oh, well, that's not a good thing. So why is he ineligible? He is not a member of the legislature. So in order to be elected leader of the Labour Party and therefore prime minister, you have to be a member of the legislature. And he is the mayor of Manchester in England, and so he's not currently in the legislature. He would have to find a seat in Parliament before that can happen. So it's kind of a race. Can the other leadership challenges get rid of Starmer before Andy Burnham is elected? And a lot of Andy Burnham supporters, they want to keep Starmer in so that they can get Burnham in, and then Burnham can kill off Starmer. So it's kind of a multi-axis situation going on here. So it's quite interesting. So I could see Starmer hanging on for quite a little bit longer, simply with the backing of Andy Burnham, but it remains to be seen. Once Burnham gets into Parliament, that's probably going to be the end of Starmer. Burnham has a lot of supporters in the governing Labour Party, and I would expect that he would, if he became prime minister, he would be a lot of a wheeling and dealing kind of politician. I don't know much about him. I think a relationship with Trump he would pursue it, but he wouldn't mind blowing it up for political gain. So out of all three, I think he would be the most friendly to Trump. Next is Angela Rayner. She is a member of Parliament, as is Wes Streeting. Angela Rayner was the Deputy Prime Minister. It's kind of like the U.S. Vice President, although if Starmer had died, Angela Rayner wouldn't have automatically become Prime Minister. It's not how that works. Deputy Prime Minister is kind of a figurehead title. She was forced out of office because she was caught not paying her taxes. She is waiting to be cleared by the police, and I believe she will be. She didn't do anything criminal. She just didn't follow proper procedure. So once she is cleared, she will probably make a run, and that's why she has not pulled the trigger on a leadership contest. She is on the left wing of the Labour Party, and I would expect a Rayner-Trump relationship to be quite icy. She is aggressive, and I think the two of them would not get along very well, especially because she is a woman. Theresa May, when she was Prime Minister, Trump did not treat her very well, so I would expect Trump not to treat this woman Prime Minister well either. And then lastly, we have Wes Streeting. He is the health secretary. He basically occupies the role that RFK Jr. has here in the States, and I don't believe he would win, but I think he would run. I think he's more of a wild card, and we don't really know a lot about Wes Streeting. And I think the relationship between the two of them has the potential to be good, but it could also be very bad because Wes Streeting is a little bit of a hothead. He can kind of say and do things that are unpredictable, a lot like Trump. So that has a potential to be a bad relationship. Wes Streeting has been more historically on the socially conservative and economically liberal wing of the party, but he's also been following a lot of what the leaders have been doing, so we don't really know what his personal beliefs are. And then out of all three, I would prefer Angela Rayner. I think Andy Burnham is the most likely to become Prime Minister. So that's kind of the brief rundown and all that is for this episode. I'll probably cover it more in detail when Starmer does fall. Starmer will be ousted at some point, probably this summer. I don't know exactly when, but he has been facing calls to resign really all the way since the end of last year, but here we are. So that is it for this episode, and as a reminder, I am the author of 2 books. One of my books is actually right behind me. That's a book I wrote last year, and the link is in the description down below. And as always, please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Bye-bye.